Okay, so the for finding this internal force, we already defined this internal force developed across the cross section of the body. When we supply some external force, some internal force develop across the cross section of the body, and this internal force may be attractive force or repulsive force, and this internal force try to resist the external force. Okay, and that internal
സർ
force.
കാണാൻ പറ്റുന്നില്ല.
Oh, sorry. Okay, so this internal force will be developed across the cross section, and this internal force try to resist the external force acting on the body, and this internal force also try to uh, or resist the deformation of the body. Okay, so when we apply some amount of force, for example, here I am applying a force on this pen, and when I apply 10 Newton force on this pen, we cannot see any type of deformation for this pen. Okay, how this deformation arrested on this pen? By applying the pen, applying some internal resisting force against this 10 Newton force, and this internal resisting force actually resists this deformation also. Okay, but here we can see some deformation. When I apply some amount of force, here I can see some deformation. So the material or the atomic bonding has not ability to resist this deformation against the external force. But here we can see the bond is not broken. Okay, when I release the load, here we can see the body come back to its initial shape and size. Okay, so we already discussed all these things in the last class. And this internal force and this external force maintain an equilibrium in a body. Okay, so when I apply some external force F on this body, across any cross section of the body, some internal force will be developed. For example, in this cross section, an internal force is developed. If we take another cross section, some internal force will be developed, and this internal force and this external force constitute an equilibrium for this body. Okay, and this is the basic concept. The equilibrium concept is the basic concept constituting the theoretical base for the mechanics of solids. So for any body which is in rest, we can say sum of all horizontal force is equal to 0, sum of all vertical force is equal to 0, sum of all moment about a point equal to 0. Then we can say the body is in equilibrium. Okay, so we need both the balance of force and moment. Okay, so so throughout our mechanics solid lecture, we will use the term equilibrium because we only consider body which is in equilibrium. Okay, so that is the concept of equilibrium. Next one is method of sections. Method of sections. So the last class we studied when a body is experience any type of external force, internal force will be developed across any cross section of the body. Internal force will be developed, and this internal force is actually responsible for the deformation or fracture of the body. Okay, if this internal force developed can resist all the external force, then there will not be any deformation or there will not be any fracture. But if there is any blockage, the bonding, the atomic bonding may block based on this internal force, then there is a chance for fracture. So this internal force is basically the main responsible factor for the strength of the any body. So our design or further our stress, strain, everything is based on this internal force, not based on this external force. Okay, so next we are going to calculate the direction and the magnitude of this internal force. Okay, next we are going to calculate the magnitude and the direction of this internal force. For that we use a technique which is called method of Session. So for the analysis of internal resistance or internal force offered by a body, which is actually naturally set up inside the body, we use method of sections. Okay. So for method of section, for example, consider this body. Consider this body, and this body is actually in a rest position, which is supported with two supports. These are two uh, uh, roller supports, both the roller supports. Okay, which is in this body is in rest position, and here this body subjected to two external force F1 and F2. Two external force F1 and F2. Okay, and this body is in rest, and since we can say this body is in equilibrium because there are the sum of all horizontal force is equal to 0, sum of all vertical force is equal to 0, sum of all moment about a point equal to 0. So this body is in rest, then we can say sum of all force and the sum of all moment is equal to 0. Okay, and here I am removing these two supports with the reactive force. We already studied in mechanics. We can remove the supports with the reactive force. So here the reaction offered by the support A is FA or RA. RA is the reaction offered by support A. RB is the reaction offered by support B. Okay, so this is the body in equilibrium. Two forces are external. These two forces are RA and RB are the reactive forces. And this reactive force also an external force. Okay, this reactive force actually when I apply force, so for example here this pen, here this pen is supported in this bottle. So here actually a reactive force is acting on this pen, and this reactive force is an external force because this is the force from this bottle to pen. Okay, so this is also an external force. So all these four forces are external force. Okay, two external force and two reactive force. All four forces are external force. And here I'm going to cut this body using a section. So this is a section A, B, C, D. I cut this body into two halves using a section A, B, C, D. So this is the top half. The top half F2 and F1 are the external force. And this is the bottom half. RA and RB are the external force. RA and RB. Okay. So initially this body was in equilibrium. Sum of all external forces in horizontal and vertical side are 0. Sum of all moment about any point equal to 0. So we can say this body as a whole is in equilibrium. If the body as a whole is in equilibrium, then we can say any part of this body also should be in equilibrium. Okay. When this body as a whole is in equilibrium, then we can say any part of this body also should be in equilibrium. So this first half and second half also should be in equilibrium. Okay, but here we can see the two unbalanced forces, F1 and F2. These two are unbalanced forces because there is no resistance offered by against this F1 and F2. If this body is in equilibrium, there should not be any unbalanced force. Sum of all forces should be equal to 0. Okay, but here when I cut this body into two halves, if the whole body is in equilibrium, then we can say any part of this body also should be in equilibrium. But when I cut into two halves, here there is only two forces, F1 and F2. F1 and F2 are actually unbalanced force. Then how can we maintain the equilibrium of this part 1? By some internal resistance force. These are the internal resistance force. So with this internal resistance force, Ri, I am giving Ri. Internal resistance force F1 and F2 constitute a equilibrium condition of this body. Sum of all forces will be equal to 0. Okay, and here also part 2 also should be in equilibrium. Here we can see Ra, Rb, the two reactive forces offered by the support. Also in and also is an unbalanced force. So to maintain this equilibrium of this part 2, some reactive internal forces develop across this cut section. This is Ri2. This is Ri1. This is Ri2. Okay, Ri2 is developed. So these two are the internal force. These two are the internal force. And this method of section is used to calculate this internal force. Then how can we calculate this internal force Ri1 and Ri2? It's very easy because this part is in equilibrium. This part is in equilibrium. Then we can say sum of F2 plus F1 plus Ri1 equal to 0. Because sum of all forces should be equal to 0. If we know F2 and F1, then we can calculate Ri1. Ri1. That is the internal resistive force. Similarly here, Ra, sum of all force, this part is in equilibrium. So there will not be any unbalanced force. Then we can say sum of all forces equal to 0 or sum of Ra plus Rb plus the internal resistance force Ri2 equal to 0. If we know this Ra and Rb, then we can calculate Ri2. We can calculate the internal force. Okay, so calculation of the internal force is the preliminary step of any design process. Any design process, because all the fracture, all the deformation, all the resistance offered by the body against the external force is based on the internal force developed across the cross section of the body. So the calculation of the internal force is the primary step of any design process. And how can we calculate this internal force? By this method of sections. Method of sections. Method of sections. Method of sections. Initially, we take a body which is in rest, and some external forces are acting on this body, including the reactive force. The external forces, reactive forces. Okay, F1, F2, Ra, Rb. All these four forces are external force. And this body is in rest, then we can say sum of all force, vertical and horizontal forces are equal to 0. Sum of all moment about any point will be also equal to 0. Okay, so this body is in equilibrium. Then I cut this body into two halves. The first part is this one, second part is this one, and from this figure we can see there are only F1 and F2 external forces are acting on the first part, Ra and Rb, the reactive external forces are acting on the part 2. If the whole body is in equilibrium, because this body is in rest, then this body is in equilibrium. And if the whole body is in equilibrium, any part of the body also should be in equilibrium. So these two parts also should be in equilibrium. But here we can see F1 and F2 are the external force. If we sum these F1 and F2, F1 and F1 plus F2, which will not be equal to 0. Because both F1 and F2 are external force. This will not be equal to 0. Then we cannot say this is in equilibrium. Then how this body maintain the equilibrium condition? By developing an internal force. By developing an internal force, RIE, and this internal force direction will be opposite to that of the resultant of F1 and F2. F1 F2 ന്റെ resultantന്റെ opposite direction ആയിരിക്കും RI1 ന്റെ direction. And the magnitude of this resistance internal force will be equal to the summation of the resultant of F1 F2. Okay, so by developing an internal resistance force, we can maintain the equilibrium condition for the part 1. Similarly, for the part 2, the external forces are Ra and Rb. Here Ra and Rb are the unbalanced forces. To maintain the equilibrium of part 2, an internal force developed across a cross section, that is Ri2, which is opposite to the direction of Ra-Rb resultant, and the magnitude of Ri2 is equal to the resultant magnitude of Ra and Rb. And how can we calculate this Ri1 and Ri2? If this part is in equilibrium, we can write sum of all forces equal to 0. So sum of F1, F2 plus Ri1 equal to 0. If we know F1 and F2, we can calculate Ri1. Similarly, here sum of Ra plus Rb plus Ri2, that is internal resistance force, equal to 0. If we know these two reactive forces, then we can calculate the internal resistance force. Okay, so this is the method to calculate the internal resistance force. So I will read the definition of method accession. To the determination of internal force, considering an arbitrary section ABCD is assumed to pass through the body, which completely separate the body into two parts. This process is called method accession. So just by dividing this body into two parts, that is method accessions. And then if the body as a whole is in equilibrium, any part of it must also be in equilibrium. The external applied force to one side of the arbitrary cut are balanced by the external force to the one side of the arbitrary cut are balanced by some internal force developed at the cut. Some internal force developed at the cut. That is Ri1 and Ri2. And this diagram is called free body diagram. Here we remove all the supports Ra and Rb, and we replace the supports with the reactive force. And this diagram is called free body diagram. So this method is called method of sessions. So from the method of session, we can calculate the resistant internal force. From the resistant internal force, we can calculate the stress. We already defined the definition of stress. Stress is the internal resistance force offered by a body cross section against external force, okay, per unit cross section. Okay, that is internal resistance force per unit cross section offered by a body against external force. So from this method accession, we can calculate the internal resistance force. From the internal resistance force, we can calculate stress. Based on the stress, we can design a component or body. Okay, so that is actually the design step. Next, I'm explaining some of the assumptions and the limitations commonly used in mechanics of solids. There are some assumptions and there are some limitations for these assumptions. So the first assumption is all materials are continuous and remain continuous under the action of external force. So when we deal with any body in mechanics of solids, we consider all bodies which we are dealing are continuous in nature. That means there is no voids or cracks or any impurities inside the body. Okay, all bodies are continuous, which are pure in nature. Okay, so but we know for the practical situations, all bodies which we are dealing are not continuous. There will be some cracks, impurities, voids inside the material. But we use these assumptions for developing different theories and for applying different mathematical tools in mechanics of solids. Okay, so that is the first assumption. All materials are continuous and remain continuous under the action of external force. Okay, but the limitation is the material which we are dealing is not continuous. The material will have some voids, cracks, impurities, etc. But this assumption is okay because compared to the size of the material, compared to the size of the body, the size of voids, cracks, impurities will be very, very less. For example, if you take this pen, compared to the size of this pen, the interatomic voids, interstitial voids, or any impurities or cracks will be the size of all these things will be very, very, very small. So we can neglect all these things. Okay, so this assumption is okay for mechanics of solids. Next assumption is all materials are homogeneous. So first one is continuous. Continuous. Second assumption is all materials are homogeneous. Okay, so the homogeneity is actually we define if you take any body or material, the properties will be identical throughout the material. Okay, if you take this body, and if you take any property at this point, for example, if you take the strength at this point, or hardness at this point, or different any mechanical property or any thermal property at this point A, and if you take another point B, everywhere it will be same. Okay, it will be same. Then we can say this is a homogeneous material. Okay, every point of this body, every mechanical, thermal, chemical, every properties will be same. But most of our material will not be a homogeneous material, and the main reason is the phase distribution. More than one phase may be present in our materials. So everywhere the material distribution will not be same, and there may be a chance of segregation. Segregation, the materials ചില സ്ഥലങ്ങളിൽ accumulate ചെയ്യുക, segregated. Okay, so there is a chance for segregation when we solidify these materials, and this leads to the inhomogeneity of the material. So practically, for example, if you take concrete, concrete is not a homogeneous material because everywhere the properties will not be same. In somewhere the proportion of sand may be higher, and somewhere the proportion of cement may be higher. So the properties will be different. So we can say that is inhomogeneous material. But we take these assumptions for the sake of developing theories and applying different mathematical tools in mechanical solids. Another one is all materials are isotropic in nature. We are dealing with in mechanical solids. We are dealing with the materials which are isotropic in nature. We know what is isotropic. The properties in every directions are same. Properties in every directions are same. Then we can say that material is isotropic in nature. For example, if you take a material, for example, if you take this sponge and applying a force in the length direction, longitudinal direction, and the strength in longitudinal direction is higher, and if it applying a force in the transverse direction, this is the transverse direction, and if the strength in the transverse direction is weaker, then we can say the material or the body is anisotropic material. Anisotropic, because the strength in different directions are different. But if the strength in all directions are same, strength is just a one property. Similarly, all properties in all directions are same, then we can say the body is isotropic body. Basically, our materials are polycrystalline material. Most of our metals are polycrystalline material. We will study what is these polycrystalline materials in your MMS class. The materials are arranged like this. These are called grains arrangement. Okay, so each individual, this one is a individual boundary is a grain. Okay, individual divisions are grains, and this body is a polycrystalline material, and this grain is also called a crystal, single crystal. And here the arrangement is like this. The atoms are or molecules are regularly arranged. If you take a particular grain, the atoms or molecules are regularly arranged. The atoms have same orientation. The orientation will be same. But if you take adjacent grain, for example, if you take this grain, so this is the magnified view of this grain 1. If you take adjacent grain, its orientation may be different. Maybe this is the orientation. Okay, this is different from the orientation of grain 1. So, different orientation or different direction atomic arrangement constitute a particular grain. So, every grain has different orientation, and different oriented crystals are separated with a grain boundary. This is called grain boundary. So, if you take any crystal, a single grain, then if we apply a force, apply a force on this single grain, then there is a chance for if you apply a force on the single grain, then there is a chance for slippage of the one layer of atom over the another. There is a chance for slipping of one layer of atom over the adjacent layer of atom. So, in that direction, the strength will be low, because when we apply a particular force, there is a chance for slipping, and it can easily deform in this direction, applied to force direction. So, in this direction, the material, the crystal is in weak, is very weak. But maybe in this direction, because of the different orientation of these atoms or molecules, the chance for slipping is low. Because here we can see there is no a single layer like this. So there is a chance for less slipping between the layers of atom. So we can say this in this direction, the strength of the material is higher. So in single crystalline materials are anisotropic in nature because in different directions its properties are different. But polycrystalline materials are, we can consider as a isotropic in nature because when I apply force F on the polycrystalline material, in this direction it may be weak, but there is a grain boundary to resist this deformation of a particular grain. Okay, here we can see number of grain boundaries. So for a particular crystal, this direction may be a weak direction, but after a particular distance, we can see a grain boundary which resists the deformation in that direction. Similarly, everywhere we can see grain boundaries. So there is no weak region or strong region in a polycrystalline material. Everywhere the strength will be almost same. Strength will be almost same. So we can say a polycrystalline material is a isotropic in nature. We can consider polycrystalline material as an isotropic material. So most of our metals are a polycrystalline material. So we can consider our materials as isotropic, but all materials are not purely isotropic in nature. So that is a limitation of that assumptions. Then fourth assumption is all materials are free from internal forces prior to loading. Okay, so there will not be any internal force before loading. Okay, it should be free from, the material should be free from any internal force or the stored energy. There will not be any stored energy inside the material. Okay, and this internal force development inside the body is mainly because of the heat treatment process. For example, if we do any heat treatment, for example, if we heat a particular metal, then we suddenly dip into a cold water. Okay, so sudden cooling of that metal may lead to some internal force development inside the material and which stored inside the material. And some cold working process also may be a reason for storage of internal forces inside the material. If you do a hammering process on a metal, there is a chance for storage of internal forces. Okay, that is called cold working or strain hardening. So this may lead to some internal force inside the material, but we assume in mechanical solids we assume there is no internal force inside the material. Okay, and another assumption is, so the internal force, the free from internal force. That is next assumption. Another assumption is the material follow principle of superposition. I will explain what is principle of superposition in your next module. And we ignore another assumption is we ignore the self weight of the structures or materials. Okay, we ignore that. But in some cases we consider self weight, but probably we ignore the self weight of the members. And another assumption is Stern-Varian principle is valid. Okay, so these are the assumptions, and we explain all the limitations of these assumptions. Okay, and okay. Next one is stress. So we already defined what is stress. Stress is defined as the internal resistance offered by a body against deformation when external load applied to it per unit cross-section area. Okay, stress is defined as the internal resistance offered by a body against the external force applied to it per unit cross-section area. So, you will stress in the definition. What is stress? No, stress is force by area. Force applied per unit area. Stress in the definition, but that is not the actual definition of stress. The definition of stress is that it is the internal resistance offered by a body against the external applied load to it per unit cross section area. So, for example, if you take a body, some forces are applied on this body. Some forces are applied on this body, and if you take a particular cross section, this is a cross section I am taking, and the cross section area is A. Cross section area is A, and the resultant of all the forces F1, F2, P1, P2. The resultant of all forces are, for example, R. Then stress is equal to R by A. Your definition learning stress is equal to R by A. But my definition is under the influence of this external force across the cross section A, there will be some internal force. We already parnu internal force develop internal force develop in the reason. We in the class parnu internal force calculate in method of sessions which parnu. Method of sessions which are internal force develop in. So there will be some internal force develop across this cross section. Okay, and this internal force, internal resistance force per this cross section area is called stress. And how this internal force develop? Because of the applied external force. Under the influence of this external force P1, P2, F1, F2, some internal force develop across this cross section area A, and stress is equal to this internal resistance force per cross section area where internal resistance force is acting. That's important. Cross section area where internal resistance force is active. That is equal to stress. Okay. So next I am going to calculate the stress of on a bar member. For example, here I am drawing a bar member, a rectangular bar. A tensile force is acting on this bar. Tensile force of P is acting on this bar. Okay. I am going to calculate the stress acting on this bar member. So I am going to take the front view of this bar member. So this is the front view of this bar member. Here a force P is acting. Tensile force P is acting. Okay. Tensile force P is acting. I want to calculate the stress at this cross section. Where the cross section area is A. So before calculating the stress, first I want to calculate the internal resistance force, because stress is equal to internal resistance force per cross section area where stress is acting. Okay, so initially you have to find this internal resistance force across this cross section. And then we need to apply the method of sessions apply. So in the I divide this body into two parts. This is the first part where P force is acting. This is the first part. And this is my cross section. A cross section. This is the cross section. and this is my second part where also P is acting. So I divide this body, this bar into two parts. First part on the left side, second part is in the right side. This is called method of sessions. Method of sessions. And there will be some internal force developed. This bar is in equilibrium. This bar is in equilibrium. So if this bar is in equilibrium, the left part and the right part also should be in equilibrium. But if we consider this left part, there is only one force P. There is only one force P. So we cannot say sum of all P equal to 0 because there is only one force P which is not equal to 0. So the left part is not in equilibrium. To maintain the equilibrium condition of the left part, some internal force, some internal resistance force develop across this cross section. So we can say this R1. R1 is the internal resistance force developed across the cross section. And what will be the direction? The direction of the internal resistance force will be opposite to that of P. P opposite. Balance the equilibrium. Okay, it will be opposite to that of external force P. And similarly, the second part also should be in equilibrium. To maintain here also the load P is an unbalanced force because sum of all horizontal force equal to 0 P equal to 0 P not equal to 0. There is a value for P. So this is an unbalanced force. To balance this force in the horizontal direction, some internal force will be developed across the cross section and which is equal to R2. Which is equal to R2. And now this part 2 is in equilibrium. Because this R2 internal resistance force is developed to balance this force P. Similarly, this R1 internal force is developed to balance force P. And the R2 direction is opposite to that of P. R1 direction is opposite to that of P. Then we can say if this part 1 is in equilibrium, we can say sum of all horizontal force is equal to 0. Horizontal force is equal to 0. Then P minus R1 equal to 0. Then R1 equal to P. R1 equal to P. So this R1 equal to P area. Common logic apply this P R1 P area. Because sum of all horizontal force is 0. Similarly here, sum of all horizontal force equal to 0 for part 2. Then P minus R2 opposite direction. P direction opposite direction R2. P minus R2 equal to 0. R2 equal to 0. Then P equal to R2. Okay. So we got R2 equal to P. And now internal resistance force that is also equal to P. Next, I am going to redraw this entire body. Class, next class. 12:30 line. Finish. So this is define finish. So I am redraw this entire body. Here P is acting. Here P is acting. Both are external force. In this cross section, some internal forces are developed. This is again P, which is R1. Again, in the reverse direction, R2 is acting, which is also equal to P. So this is our internal force. Okay. Internal force is developed. Then in this cross section, what is stress? Stress equal to internal resistance force across this cross section. What is the internal resistance force across this cross section? That is the P. That is also equal to P. Okay, that is equal to R1 or R2 or P. Both are same. R1, R2, P. Everything are same. So internal resistance force across the cross section, that is P divided by cross section area. Cross section area where P is acting. What is that? A. P by A. That is equal to stress. Stress is equal to internal resistance offered by a cross section against the applied external force per unit cross section area. Okay, per unit cross section area. So this is the definition of a stress. Okay. So this is called stress. So ഇത്രയും കാര്യങ്ങള് നെക്സ്റ്റ് ക്ലാസ്സിൽ ഒന്ന് നോക്കിയിട്ട് വരിക. ഞാൻ ഈ റെക്കോർഡ് ചെയ്ത സെഷന് അപ്ലോഡ് ചെയ്തേക്കാം. ഇന്നലത്തെ സെഷന് ഞാൻ വീണ്ടും ഒന്ന് എടുത്ത് അപ്ലോഡ് ചെയ്യാം. ഈ സ്ട്രെസ്സിന്റെ ഡെഫിനേഷൻ മസ്റ്റ് ആയിട്ട് എല്ലാവരും മനസ്സിലാക്കി പഠിക്കുക. കാരണം എന്താണെന്ന് വെച്ച് കഴിഞ്ഞാൽ ഈ സ്ട്രെസ് എന്ന് പറയുന്ന കാര്യം എല്ലായിടത്തും ചോദിക്കുന്ന കാര്യമാണ്. അപ്പൊ നിങ്ങൾ ചുമ്മാ ഫോഴ്സ് ബൈ ഏരിയ എന്ന് പറഞ്ഞു കഴിഞ്ഞാൽ അതല്ല സ്ട്രെസ്. സ്ട്രെസ് എന്ന് പറയുന്നത് ഡീറ്റെയിൽ ആയിട്ട് ഇതുപോലെ പറഞ്ഞാൽ മാത്രമാണ് എല്ലാവർക്കും മനസ്സിലാവുള്ളൂ. ഓക്കെ, അപ്പോ നെക്സ്റ്റ് ക്ലാസ്സിൽ ബാക്കി എടുക്കാം. അപ്പൊ ഈ പറഞ്ഞ ഈ കുറച്ച് ആൾക്കാർ ഇല്ലാത്തുണ്ട്, ഒന്ന് സേവ് ചെയ്യട്ടെ. സോറി, ഇതില് ഞാൻ പേര് വിളിക്കുന്നവരെ ഒഴികെ പോക്കോട്ടോ. ഡോൺ then രോഹിത് കൃഷ്ണൻ, പോലെ ശ്യാംജിത്ത്, ആത്മൻ, അഭിമന്യു, അത്മൻ, അമൻ, ഡോൺ തോമസ് അഗെയിൻ വന്നിട്ടുണ്ടല്ലോ, ഷെയ്ൻ. അത്രയും പേര് ഒഴികെ പോക്കോ എല്ലാരും. താങ്ക് യു.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Bye, sir.
Thank you.